Hello, dear audience. Finally, Truong is back, but not in his previous role as a police officer. A huge shock has completely changed his life. Now Truong is just a humble farmer, having lost his memory of the past. Will he be able to recall the memories of Tieu Nu, the one he once loved? Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell to follow the thrilling developments in the unexpected story of Truong and Tieu Nu. As the first light of dawn began to break, a new day started, and Truong's image today was completely different from the days before. No longer a man of the city, no longer in the solemn police uniform, Truong now wore the simple attire of an ethnic villager, radiating sincerity and humility. The surroundings were peaceful, but to Truong, everything felt new. He had completely forgotten the past. The memories of his chaotic life had been swept away by the waves of vague recollections. After the accident, Truong was saved by a simple and kind-hearted woman, a healer. She took care of him, helped him regain his health, but in doing so, she also made him lose important fragments of his memory. From that moment, Truong began a new life, where everything seemed strange, yet somehow familiar. Every morning, as the first light of the day shone down, Truong woke up in a small house beside the vast fields where the chirping of birds and the rustling of trees filled the air. His day began by taking care of the animals in the garden. He carried food out for them, moving gently and feeding them with swift hands, his eyes full of peace. He no longer remembered the old life, the stressful work, or the hustle and bustle of the city, but instead, he felt the tranquility of doing the work he loved, whether it was chopping wood or tidying up the garden. After feeding the animals, Truong continued with his work. He took an axe and walked to the nearby forest to chop firewood. The sound of the axe striking the wood filled the air, the wood splintering as it fell. Sweat dotted his forehead, but his eyes were bright, as if the challenges ahead were mere small obstacles. In this new world, nothing scared him. Truong felt as though he had found true peace, a simple yet complete life. When the basket of firewood was full, Truong brought it home and smiled warmly at the healer woman who had been by his side since the beginning. She was not only the one who saved his life, but also the one who helped him rebuild it. In Truong's eyes, she was his companion, the only family in this simple life. Yet deep in his heart, there was a vague urge, a memory of some past love, someone he could not remember by name. And although he had completely forgotten his past, these feelings, these distant memories of Tieu Nu, still occasionally resurfaced in his dreams at night. Each day passed, and Truong immersed himself in the simple life he had chosen. Yet his heart still carried an unease that could not be shaken off. Would he ever remember Tieu Nu? Could he find the lost pieces of his story? And would this simple life help him forget the pain of the past, or would these unexplored memories be the key to his fate? Truong's journey to recover his memories, rediscover love, and find himself was still long and full of mysteries. In another place, Tieu Nu still could not stop thinking about Truong. As the days passed, even though news of Truong remained a mystery, a hazy memory, her love for him never faded. Every night in the drifting sleep, she would dream of the happy days spent with Truong, his smile, and the firm hand he once held hers with. But reality was far from those dreams. She still had to face the daily life, continuing a journey she could never stop, for behind her was her beloved son needing care and love. Every morning, When Tieu Nu woke up, it was just like any other day, full of work and endless worries. She gently took the knife out to the garden, carefully clearing away the weeds that had overgrown, leaving behind patches of lush green earth full of life. Her movements were swift, as if this were a habit she had been doing for years. With each stroke of the knife, every step in the garden, it was a reminder of a simple life full of love. Tieu Nu might be tired, but she never let sorrow take over her mind. Despite the unhealed wounds in her heart, she still smiled when she saw the vibrant plants growing under her care. Once the garden was neat and tidy, Tieu Nu silently walked outside, heading down the familiar path where each step seemed connected to a memory. This path had witnessed countless times when she welcomed Truong home, countless moments when she held his hand and walked with him through the cold, late nights. But today, she no longer walked beside him. She walked alone, feeling each gentle step on the earth, her heart full of longing. She walked toward the school where her little son was studying. That was her only joy throughout these days. No matter how hard life was, no matter how her heart still yearned, for Truong, Tieu Nu never forgot her duty as a mother. Her son, with his innocent smile and bright eyes, was the motivation that kept her going each day. The road to the school wasn't far, but each time she walked it, Tieu Nu's heart was filled with thoughts about the future. She wondered if one day Truong would return, if he would remember her and the memories they shared. Or would she have to live with this longing forever, keeping it in her heart without ever being able to express it? Tieu Nu stopped for a moment, looking up at the sky, watching the clouds drift lazily by, as if they were carrying her hidden thoughts. She had no regrets about the choices she had made, but sometimes she couldn't help but wonder about the things that had passed. Would there ever be a day when Truong would remember and come back to her? Would she be able to see his smile again? And would the peaceful days return? As she neared the school gate, Tieu Nu saw her son's figure joyfully running toward her. His smile and bright eyes soothed all the sorrow in her heart. She opened her arms to embrace him, and in that moment, all the sadness seemed to melt away. Her son was all she had now, the reason she continued to live and hope for the future. Though her heart still carried memories and yearning, Tieu Nu knew that she had to keep moving forward, to be strong for her son's bright future. She couldn't let sorrow take over her life, and she couldn't leave everything behind. Truong was still an unforgettable part of her memory, but life demanded she keep going for her son and for herself. And so each day, Tieu Nu continued her journey, carrying with her a yearning love and the responsibility for her child, for her family. Despite the tiring days and long, restless nights, her heart never extinguished the flame of hope. One day, everything would become clear, and she would find the happiness she truly deserved. One peaceful morning, Truong stepped out of his small house and headed toward the village market to buy some essentials. Since losing his memory, he felt that his current life was simple, but filled with strange moments. Every day, he did familiar tasks, like feeding the animals, chopping wood, and tidying the garden. But there was no deep sense of connection to the past. Everything had passed like the wind, gently and without leaving a trace. The market today was bustling, the voices of vendors calling out echoed throughout, and the stalls were filled with fresh vegetables and fruits. The lively atmosphere was coupled with the peaceful tranquility of the countryside. Truong wandered around the market, holding a basket, picking ripe tomatoes and round pumpkins in preparation for dinner. As he reached a corner of the market, he stopped in front of a vegetable stall, and it was then that his eyes unknowingly met a familiar figure. Tieu Nu, wearing a conical hat to shield herself from the sun, was walking with her young son Diêp toward their home. Diêp was happily running beside his mother, laughing, his bright eyes sparkling, and his small hands tightly holding the bag his mother had bought at the market. Tieu Nu looked relaxed, her long hair flowing down, wearing a simple ba shirt, yet still exuding gentleness and warmth. A moment seemed to freeze in time when their eyes met. For the first time since losing his memory, Truong felt something stir within him when he saw Tieu Nu. The feeling was unclear, but there was something familiar, an invisible connection he couldn't explain. In that moment, Tieu Nu looked at him with bright eyes, as if she could see a part of the past, an important part of her life. Tieu Nu couldn't hold back her emotions. She looked at Truong, her heart seemingly stopping for a moment, unable to believe her eyes. Her heart was filled with overwhelming joy, but also with some fear. She couldn't forget him no matter how much time had passed. She walked towards him, holding Diêp's hand, telling him to run and hug the man she had once loved. Diêp, his face beaming with happiness, quickly ran to Truong and hugged him tightly. The boy looked up at him, his bright eyes sparkling as though meeting the father he had waited for so long. Tieu Nu also walked closer, her hands outstretched in joy, as if wanting to embrace Truong, to reclaim a part of the lost memories. But what shattered her heart was when Truong looked at them with a confused expression, showing no recognition in his eyes. He simply stared at them, then took a step back, as if feeling unfamiliar with the warm embrace. "I'm sorry, I don't remember you," Truong said, his voice low and filled with bewilderment. Tieu Nu stood frozen, feeling as though the entire world had collapsed beneath her feet. Her hopes, her sweet memories of him shattered in an instant. She looked at Truong, sensing the unfamiliarity in his eyes, the emptiness he carried. She didn't know what to say. She could only look at him with eyes full of tears. "You don't remember me?" Tieu Nu asked, her voice choked a pain she couldn't put into words. Truong stared at her for a moment, then shook his head. "I'm sorry. I don't remember. But I feel like there's something familiar about you." He tried to speak, but he couldn't grasp the emotions that were flooding within him. Diêp stood next to his mother, not fully understanding what was happening, only knowing that he was still hugging Truong as though this was someone familiar. But for Truong, everything felt unclear. Each time he looked at Tieu Nu, the feelings seemed like broken pieces that couldn't be connected. Tieu Nu looked down at Diêp, then back at Truong, her eyes full of regret and pain. She had hoped so much for this moment, hoping that one day Truong would remember the sweet memories between them. But now, all she received was unfamiliarity. "I can't do anything more, can I?" Tieu Nu whispered, her voice lost in the blurry space. Truong didn't know how to respond. He just stood there, silently feeling as though he was standing between two worlds, not knowing where he belonged. Who was Tieu Nu? Who was Diêp? Where had his memories gone? All of it was a question with no answers. "Anyway, I'm sorry," Truong said, then turned away, walking slowly, leaving Tieu Nu and Diêp standing still in the market where the others passed by as if nothing had happened. But in Tieu Nu's heart, everything had changed forever. Watching Truong's figure disappear into the crowd, Tieu Nu felt like she was losing everything. Losing Truong, losing the beautiful memories, and perhaps losing all hope. But deep within her heart, she knew. Even though Truong didn't remember her, even though everything seemed uncertain, that love would always remain within her, a love that could never fade. Tieu Nu stood in the crowded market, but her heart felt empty. The voices of the vendors, the sounds of people passing by seemed to fade into nothingness. Every sound became distant and blurred. The world around her felt as if it were turning its back on her. Dy, her little son, still clutched his bag tightly, his innocent eyes looking up at her. Diêp was her only comfort in life right now, but his question struck her heart like a dagger. "Mom, is that really my dad?" The simple, harmless question pierced through Tieu Nu like a sharp blow to her chest. She stood motionless, her vacant gaze locked onto the crowd before her, unable to respond immediately. Time passed slowly, and she struggled to breathe as if her body had gone numb. Diêp still stood there, his innocent eyes fixed on her, unaware that her world had been torn apart by the very man he called his father. In his bright gaze, Tieu Nu saw the hope and absolute trust he had in the man he believed to be his father. And this only made her heart ache more. She lowered her head, her vision blurred, as if she couldn't bear the weight of her own emotions. Finally, she gently comforted her son, trying to force a smile, though deep inside a wave of sorrow was rising within her. "No, my dear, he's not your father. But perhaps he was once an important part of my life." Tieu Nu said, her voice thick with emotion. Diêp looked up at her, not fully understanding her words. He was still just a child, unable to comprehend the pain in his mother's heart. But even without understanding, he looked into her eyes and then turned back toward the man who had just walked away. Diêp's gaze lingered for a moment, a vague uncertainty between a stranger and a shadow in his mother's memory. He looked up, watching Truong disappear into the crowd. Diêp's eyes suddenly seemed clouded, filled with confusion and doubt. He didn't know what was happening, but in that moment, a strange feeling stirred in Tieu Nu's heart. She couldn't understand why her love, a love that had once been filled with hope and trust, was now just an unreachable memory. She bent down and embraced her son, but her heart still ached with the loss. The memories of Truong, the sweet love they once shared, the days when she had dreamed of a happy family, those memories all came rushing back to her. Her son's embrace offered some comfort, but it also deepened the pain. Every day she had to live with fragmented pieces of the past and dreams of a day when Truong would return, when he would remember her and Diêp. But now, all of that seemed lost memories that could never be touched again. As she walked beside her son, Tieu Nu couldn't help but wonder, had life taken away everything she loved, everything she had hoped for? Had she created this pain for herself to live with the memories of an incomplete love? She looked ahead, but the road before her remained unclear. Diêp, still happily walking beside her, was unaware that his mother was drowning in pain he couldn't understand. In the stillness of long nights, when only the wind whispered outside the window, Tieu Nu couldn't help but think of Truong. Would the forgotten memories ever awaken one day? Would he remember her and Diêp, return to find them as she had always hoped? Or would everything remain an unfinished story, a lost fragment of memory that could never be found again? Tieu Nu raised her gaze to the sky. The clouds slowly drifted away, and the light of the setting sun illuminated the space, but inside her heart, there was still a dark void. She wondered if she could continue living in that hope. Would Truong still love her as he once did when he remembered everything? And would there be a day when she could hold him again and feel that love once more? Tieu Nu's steps remained steady, but deep within her, her heart was filled with unanswered questions. Diêp, though unaware of it, all remained the only light in her life. But would that light be enough to drive away the darkness in her heart? Or would it only make the pain heavier? She didn't know. All she knew was that with each passing day, she lived in the hope that one day everything would return. But would it really happen? Or would it forever remain a dream that could never awaken? Life went on, but with each step, Tieu Nu was still full of longing, the memories she couldn't forget, and a love that never died. She could only hope that one day Truong would remember and come back to her and Diêp, so they could complete the love story they had missed so long ago.